الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Ibrahim is one of those rare human beings whose presence in history feels larger than time itself. He stands at the meeting point of three great religious traditions, and at the same time at the meeting point of deeply human experiences: doubt and belief, fear and courage, loneliness and hope, searching and finding. The sacred narratives do not show him as a distant symbol, but as a living man who walks a long and difficult road. It is a road through deserts, through history, and through the inner landscape of the heart. Speaking about Ibrahim always becomes a way of speaking about humanity itself, because his story touches the core of what it means to live with purpose. People often imagine Ibrahim as the perfect monotheist, a man who shattered idols and proclaimed the oneness of the Creator. But the traditions make it clear that he did not begin with certainty. He began with questions. Ibrahim, as a young man, looked at the stars glowing above him, at the moon rising and disappearing, at the sun shining and sinking. Each seemed beautiful and powerful, yet each faded. In these moments of watching the universe, he realized that the true Creator must be beyond change and beyond decline. His monotheism, therefore, was not inherited, it was discovered. It was the result of thought, reflection, and a fierce longing for truth. The world in which he grew up was built on idolatry. The idols were not only objects of worship, they were part of a political structure and an economic system. When Ibrahim questioned these idols, he questioned the entire foundation of his society. His search for truth was not a quiet, private decision. It was a public act that shook the beliefs of his people. He stood alone, young and outnumbered, yet confident that falsehood cannot stand when confronted by clarity. One of the most dramatic moments in his life is the destruction of the idols in the temple. He breaks them all except the largest, and he leaves an axe in its hands. When the people demand an explanation, he tells them to ask the remaining idol. His words trap them in their own contradiction. They know the idol cannot speak. They know it cannot defend them. For a brief moment, the truth flashes before their eyes, but fear pushes them back into denial. Their answer to truth is anger. They condemn him to be burned alive. The fire they build for him is immense, but the miracle that follows transforms this moment of danger into a moment of nearness to God. The flames, instead of consuming him, become cool and peaceful. What people intended as destruction becomes a sign of divine protection. It marks the beginning of a long journey, a journey that takes Ibrahim across lands and across spiritual challenges that shape the destiny of nations. Ibrahim's life becomes a chain of migrations. He leaves his homeland, travels to unfamiliar places, encounters different peoples, faces new trials. These migrations are not simply changes of location, they are steps in a spiritual development. To travel for the sake of truth is to detach oneself from comfort and possessions. It is to place trust not in the land, but in the one who created the land. Ibrahim becomes the archetype of the traveler in God's path, a wanderer whose home is wherever truth leads him. His family life reveals another side of his humanity. He is tender, hospitable, gentle, and at the same time capable of facing tests of unimaginable difficulty. For many years, he and his wife Sarah are unable to have a child. The silence of an empty home becomes a test of patience. Then his son Ismail is born through Hajar. Joy enters his life, but joy is followed by another test. Ibrahim must take Hajar and the infant Ismail to a barren valley with no water and no inhabitants. The idea of a man leaving his wife and child in such a place is a moment heavy with emotion. Hajar's faith in God transforms the scene. When she asks whether this was commanded by God, and Ibrahim confirms it, she responds with calm strength. Her trust becomes the seed of a civilization. The barren valley becomes the site of the spring of Zamzam. From emptiness comes life. This miracle echoes a central theme in Ibrahim's story. Barren lands give rise to flourishing places. Barren hearts become hearts filled with certainty. Barren beginnings become great nations. Years later, the test that defines Ibrahim in the eyes of the world arrives. He sees in a dream that he must sacrifice his son. He speaks to Ismail not as a commanding father, but as a man seeking the understanding of his child. Ismail responds with acceptance. The story is a story of surrender, not of cruelty. Father and son walk together, each trusting the highest meaning of obedience. The sacrifice is halted, replaced by a ram, but the essence of the test remains. It shows a purity of devotion that surpasses ordinary human limits. Ibrahim's life is also filled with hospitality. He welcomes strangers with generosity, even before knowing who they are. Only later does he discover that they are angels, bringing him both glad news and warnings. His hospitality shows his worldview. Kindness to guests is an expression of kindness toward creation itself. His open door becomes a symbol of spiritual nobility. Another defining moment is his building of the Kaaba with his son. They raised the foundations of a simple but powerful structure. The cube-like building becomes the spiritual center of a community that will one day stretch across continents. It is a structure of stone, but its meaning is carried in the hearts of billions. The simplicity of its design reflects the essence of Ibrahim's faith. Direct connection with the Creator without intermediaries, without complication, without illusion. Ibrahim encounters powerful rulers as well. His interactions with a king who challenges him show his clarity of thought. When the king boasts about his own power, Ibrahim responds by pointing to the cycles of nature. The sun rises and sets according to divine order, not by the power of any ruler. In these conversations, Ibrahim stands with calm certainty, revealing the weakness of arrogance when faced with truth. One of the most profound moments in his life is when he asks God to show him how the dead are brought back to life. This request is not a sign of disbelief, but a sign of seeking deeper reassurance. His heart longs for a direct demonstration. God responds with an act that satisfies his intellect and comforts his heart. This shows that faith does not eliminate the desire for explanation. It shapes it. Ibrahim teaches humanity that wanting understanding is not a flaw. It is part of the path toward closeness to God. His entire life expresses themes that define the human journey: migration, testing, patience, wisdom, and the building of a legacy. He leaves behind homeland, family, idols, comfort. Yet he gains truth, certainty, nations, and a relationship with the Creator that becomes a model for future generations. His story echoes across millennia because it speaks to the deepest human questions. How do we find truth? How do we live it? How do we trust when the future is unknown? How do we rise after trials? For Muslims, Ibrahim is the symbol of pure devotion, the one who turns away from falsehood even before revelation arrives.